All right, let's jump right in with a question that might mess with your head a little bit. What if I told you you're not experiencing the world as it happens, that you're always, at this very moment, living just a tiny fraction of a second in the past? Let's dig into how that's even possible. So, let me just ask you, straight up, do you experience the world in real time? I mean, your gut reaction is probably, yeah, of course I do. But the science, well, it tells a much, much stranger story about what's actually going on inside your head. And it all comes down to this number, 80 milliseconds. Now, that's faster than you can blink, but it's a huge deal. It's the gap, the delay between something happening out there in the world and your conscious brain actually getting the memo. So yeah, you are always, right now, living about 80 milliseconds behind everyone and everything else. This brings us to what we can call the 80 millisecond illusion. What this really means is that your perception isn't a live feed from your senses. Not at all. Instead, your brain is like this brilliant movie director, taking all the raw footage, editing it together, dubbing in the sound, and only then presenting you with the final, seamless movie of reality. So why is there a delay? I mean, why isn't it instant? Well, it just comes down to basic biology. Our nervous system is incredibly fast, for sure, but it has a physical speed limit. These neural impulses, the very signals that create our world, they don't travel at the speed of light. They top out at around 120 meters per second, which, when you think about it, is actually kind of slow. Okay, so there's a delay. But for your brain, the problem is even more complicated than that. It's not just getting one slow signal. It's getting a bunch of signals from your different senses, all arriving at different speeds. It's kind of like trying to sync up a really fast microphone with a really slow, laggy camera feed. And this chart really just lays it all out there. I mean, look at these numbers. Your ears can process a sound in maybe 20 milliseconds, but your eyes, they can take over 150 milliseconds to make sense of a complex image. So to create one single coherent moment of now, your brain has to do something amazing. It has to wait for the slowest data to show up and then cleverly average it all together. And, this isn't some brand new fringe idea. The journey to understanding this has been going on for over a century. It kicked off way back in the 19th century with Hermann von Helmholtz, who was the first to prove our nerves have a speed limit. But things got really interesting in the 80s, with Benjamin Libet's famous and controversial experiments that showed this clear delay between brain activity and our actual conscious awareness. So if our brain is always playing catch-up, how in the world do we manage to do things like catch a fast-moving ball? How does that work? This brings us to the brain's absolutely brilliant solution to the problem. It becomes a predictor. The formal name for this is predictive processing, and this is the whole game right here. Instead of just passively sitting around and waiting for information to come in, your brain is constantly making its best guess, a hypothesis about what's going to happen next. It's a proactive system, not a reactive one. It's always a step ahead. We can break this amazing process down into a simple 3-step loop that's running all the time, every second of your life. First, your brain predicts what it expects to see, hear, and feel. Then, your senses go out and sense what's actually happening. And finally, this is the key, the brain compares what it sensed to what it predicted, and it uses any difference, any prediction error, to correct its model of reality for the next moment. Once you really start to get your head around the biology, you run smack into some really deep, really mind-bending philosophical questions. If our experience of now is just a reconstruction of the past, what does that say about our sense of you? And this goes right back to Libet's work on free will. He added another wild layer to all this. His experiments suggested that the brain often kicks off an action before the person consciously feels like they've decided to do it. And that, as you can imagine, sparked a huge debate. Are we really in the driver's seat, or is our consciousness just watching a decision that's already been made? So this really forces us to draw a hard line between two things. On one side, you've got reality, the physical universe just unfolding, doing its thing. And on the other side, you've got your experience, your brain's delayed, heavily edited, predictive simulation of that universe. They are absolutely not the same thing. It's so easy to hear all this and think of the delay as some kind of flaw, right? A bug in our system. But the truth is the complete opposite. Let's look at why this delay is actually a critical feature, one that lets us live in what you could call the future past. Here's the most crucial point. That 80 millisecond buffer gives your brain the time it needs to create a stable, coherent world that makes sense.
Without it, raw, unsynchronized data would just be flooding your consciousness. The world would feel jittery, chaotic, completely unpredictable. That little delay is the price we pay for a sane and stable reality.
And you can see this predictive brain in action all over the place, especially in high-stakes moments. An athlete catching a baseball, they aren't reacting to where the ball is, they're moving to where their brain predicts it's going to be. A musician in an orchestra is anticipating the next beat to stay in rhythm. A driver swerving to miss something on the road, they're acting on a prediction made milliseconds before they were even consciously aware of the danger.
And that brings us to this quote that just sums up the whole idea so beautifully. It says, "We may be living in the past, but our brains are forever leaning into the future, constructing the illusion of a present that never truly exists." It's just a perfect paradox, isn't it? So, we'll end with a final thought for you to chew on. If your most basic experience of now is a carefully constructed simulation based on old data, what else about your perception of reality might just be a reconstruction too?